she was scared because she would watch Pakistani dramas and think like your family was like gonna be like the evil characters. What a weird assumption.
It's so insane because I feel like for the both of us, like your parents, my in-laws, my parents, your in-laws, like they just love each other.
A year later, I told my dad. My dad was like, no. I'm a content creator full time and I have a job. So a lot of the times when I'm making videos, everyone asks me, so I'm Bangladeshi, he's Pakistani. Everyone always asks how we told our parents how we got married in the first place because, you know, we did the little boyfriend girlfriend thing for a bit. And then we got married. When we were dating, I was like, hey, listen, like, I don't want to date just to date. Like, I want to date because, like, I want this to work out in the long term and, like, us to eventually get married. So I was, like, really straight up with you because I didn't want to waste my time.
Neither did I.
And because, like, at the time, like, my mom, she was just so hell-bent on me getting married. Like I'm the only daughter of 5 boys, and literally like my mom's dream, like I'm not even exaggerating, like she would literally say like, Shampa, my dream is for you to get married. Like that's all I want in this world, for you to get married. And I was like, that's a really strange dream. At the same time, like I'm accomplishing so many things in life. Obviously with COVID it was like put on a hold, but she was like, I just want you to get married and like find someone. And I'm like, okay, but like it just didn't seem possible at the time. So that's why I was like pretty straight up with you that I wanted this to be a long-term thing instead of a short-term thing. And I think sometimes a lot of people get like intimidated by that. So like how did you feel when I told you like, hey, I'm dating to get married, not to date for fun?
I was in the same boat. You know, I was looking for a person to get married to, but I was also in the mindset where, I need to make sure this is the person. I
Because
like,
we're both the oldest in our family,
yeah,
and no one else in our immediate family has ever gotten married outside of the culture before. So
yeah,
what we were doing is like, if we were going to introduce ourselves to our parents, we had to make sure. And like this is a tip I give to all my brown girls, especially if you come from like a conservative household or like a really strict Bengali or Pakistani family. I would always say no 100%. Like that's the person you're willing to bring into the house, because once you expose like that person into your life, into your family, like I feel like sometimes if it goes wrong, like your family can really hold it over you and really
yeah,
against you, that like, oh, or somebody in your later in the family could start talking shit like, oh wow, like she dated this one Pakistani guy, it didn't work out. So you see, and like always bring a negative aspect to it. So I never told my parents until I was 100% ready about you.
yeah. And it was the same on my end. I told you from the very beginning, until I feel that not only am I ready, but my parents, I feel, come to a point where I can tell them about this. Then we can go on with that conversation.
Yeah.
And you know what's so crazy is that, like, so I broke it to my parents.
Wait, maybe I should say how I started first.
You want to? Go
Because
ahead.
like I did tell my family way before you.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So I guess when it came to like the marriage process, a lot of people asked like, how did that work between us? Obviously like our wedding events went very smoothly in theory, but there was like, I thought it would be worse. I think we had like a way better end of the stick of us like getting together and our families really liking each other, but there was so much hesitancy beforehand. Like I said, we were the only ones that didn't marry outside of our cultures. So that was like a very big factor. But I did tell my mom. My mom says she always knew. She did not always know because, like I said, I still continued having these like summer events, and one of the years he just happens to start being one of the new characters at the events. She goes, "Yeah, I always knew it was him." Well, obviously, my mom's never seen you before. I have the same group of friends like my whole life, so whoever my parents sees, it's always the same character. So obviously, like when you came in, good looking guy, enthusiastic, friends with everyone. So like she always said she knew, and she'd be like creeping and like looking out the window, like
Yeah.
smiling and stuff. And then my brother would walk away because like my brother knew. So he'd be laughing. But I did tell my mom because she was just one of these days, like there was a bunch of stuff happening in my family, and she was just freaking the freak out. Like she was just freaking the fuck out on me getting married, and like she started telling people, "Oh, I don't think Champa will ever get married," which is not true. I just like didn't have anyone at the time, and she she was just bugging out in her room, and I had to literally be like, "Okay, well, there is someone." And then I told her examples about you, and then she was like, "Oh, okay." And she didn't react negatively or anything, but she was very scared about your parents. Like she was very scared, and like
Yeah.
she was scared because she would watch Pakistani dramas and think like your family was like gonna be like the evil characters. And I was like, wait, yo, me and my cousin and my brother, we laughed at her. We were like, what are you talking about? Like, because you watch TV? Like, what a weird assumption.
It's so insane because I feel like for the both of us, like your parents, my in-laws, my parents, your in-laws, like they just love each other.
Exactly.
So
Now they're like
much.
best friends. And we'll definitely talk about the transition of that. But yeah, like then later on, a year later, I told my dad. My dad was like, no. Like my dad was straight up like, no. And I was like, tell me your reasons why. He's like, it's like the language barrier because we speak two different languages. And in my head, I was like, speaking English.
Mm-hmm.
Talking English. You can survive in this country learning English, talking English.
Yeah.
But it's weird because also my parents are fully fluent in Urdu.
They are.
They are very fluent in Urdu, so I was like, why is there hesitation? And it was just mainly like they were just scared about the family part. They weren't scared about you. They were scared about your family.
I think that's the biggest fear for both of our families in general.
Like if they were going to
mesh together
because it's two different cultures.
Yeah. Because I mean, are you done with the story? You want me to go ahead? So when I was telling my parents, I mean, I'll just get into it before, like I'll tell us the build up, but.
Oh wait, I actually have one more thing.
Okay.
So a lot of people ask me like how I kind of broke it down to kind of convince my parents. So basically how I broke it down was like, I was like, hey, like you always asked me what I wanted in a partner. And I always told you I wanted someone who could be like my best friend. And someone that like has the characteristics of my dad, because my dad's a very respectable guy. Like my dad is such an amazing guy. So I always told my mom, I was like, I needed someone that had the characteristics of my dad in the sense of he takes care of his family, very gentle, just is a very caring person overall and respects me. And throughout the weeks, like my dad would ask me literally, he would be like, are you sure? And I was like, I'm not changing my mind. And then my mom would ask me throughout the weeks, like within like 4 weeks, every week, they'll ask me if I wanted to change my mind. And I was like, that's crazy. Like at the time I was like, what, 25 or 24, 25 probably. I was 25, but when we started seriously talking about the marriage, it was 26. And I was like in my head, like, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Like my brain is pretty conscious of all the decisions I make, all the judgments I make. I'm not a child anymore, but sometimes how your parents, like, if you're unmarried, they still treat you like a kid. Like for Desi culture in general, like if you're not married, they kind of don't see you as an adult. So I felt like they were still doing that to me for a very long time. Like they weren't seeing me as like an equal. So that's why they kept on asking me if I changed my mind. And I was never that type of person where I ever changed my mind on things. I was always like very high strung on it. And I was like, you know, you guys also care about having a very good Muslim man. Like, he is actually like religious. You're actually religious.
Yeah.
So I did explain that to him, to my parents, and I was like, listen, like in Islam, like you can marry another Muslim. The whole like Bengali, Pakistani relationship, that's all of a cultural thing. But like, I grew up in America. Like, I didn't always think that I had to be with like a Bengali person or like another thing. It's not like I
Yeah.
didn't choose to. It's just we just happened to like find our paths together.
I think, you know, when I told my parents also, it was the same concepts. I think generally across the board, that's just how it is. You know, like when I told my parents and I told them, in a way, they also babied me. Well, babied or see you as a kid. They don't see you as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And until you bring up that conversation of marriage or you're fully married, that's when they start treating you like an adult, which is it's difficult to get your own thoughts across over to your parents because of that. Because when I told my parents, I sat them down. We were having a family barbecue.
Mind you, you waited till I was out of the state. He was so scared that he waited till I was out of the state on vacation to Rhode Island.
I was scared. I was nervous, so shook. So I sat my parents. I was like, hey guys, I want to have a little talk with you. I got like 2 seats set up for them outside.
And we were so worried on our end. We were just like anticipating, oh, when is he finally going to tell his family? When is it going to happen? And then you sent me the text, oh, it was done.
Yeah, and so my brother's just there grilling all the chicken. My parents sit down. They start eating, munching on the food. We're all having a good time, and I just break it down to them. I was like, hey, I want to have a serious talk with you. And I just broke it down, you know, like just about you, about the family. And then I also told them, like, in terms of religion, because my parents are religious,
Yeah.
in terms of religion, like, there shouldn't be a cultural barrier
Yeah.
that stops us from getting married.
Mhm.
You know, like, I didn't really like make it known as if like these are hard set rules. Like, I try to phrase it in a way where they're understanding of what I'm bringing across to them,
Mhm.
instead of me putting my foot down. Hey, I only want to marry this person.
Yeah, exactly.
This and that. Like, I try to keep them in an understanding mode, and because of that, because my parents saw that not only am I respecting our culture,
Mhm.
but I'm respecting somebody else's culture and the religion as a whole, that really just brought everything together. And then the only issue is, just like you said, my dad said, what about the language?
Yeah.
And at that point, I said, you know, we live in America. You know, we live in New York, and
Everyone knows some type of English to at least get by.
exactly. So why can't we make this work?
Yeah.
What's the issue?
And also at the end of the day, like my Bangla is not like fluent. I love, because I like to say I speak Bangladesh.
yeah,
So, but the thing is, like, when I speak Bangla, like, I don't express emotion. I can't really express feeling.
yeah,
So, like, that's why English is, like, my dominant language. So that's why, to me, it was important that, like, I can communicate with someone that I can actually communicate with. Like, if I, at the end of the day, like, I'm marrying you, I'm marrying the person. So, like, I needed to communicate with the person that I was going to marry.
yeah. I mean, you know, they communicated just fine because your parents knew
Yeah.
Urdu, and I think the only other question, the only big other factor was, how is the family?
Yeah.
And I made it known. I was like, hey, the family is amazing. You know, I want you to sit down, have a talk with them.
Mm-hmm.
We're all sit at a table, and I don't want you to make any final decisions on your part
Yeah.
until you meet the family and
Yeah.
her yourself.
So both of our families were open on like sitting down together. So do you remember how we kind of initiated that? Like, I'm pretty sure it was you that you were like, okay, like let's meet them, because we a lot of our communication was not within our parents. So our parents did not communicate beforehand.
Yeah.
All the communication was done between us. So we were the ones that set up the dinner, the first meeting, and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I mean, I just my parents were like, okay, let's get it on the road, and we just set a date, we set a place, and the next thing you know, it's the day of, it's the night of,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all just getting prepared and ready.
Wait,
And
actually, no, because before then, my parents did take you out to dinner. It was weird. Before our families met, my parents wanted to have a sit down dinner with you specifically
yeah,
because they wanted to be like, yo, are you like ready to marry my daughter? Like they were asking you straight up. Like my parents are not intimidating people. I just want to let that be known. My parents are not intimidating people. I just happen to be like the only intimidating person from the family, but my parents are very nice people. But they were like, I want to meet him officially as your partner, that we were about to get engaged. So that was so weird.
okay, before we get into all of that, let me run down all the things beforehand that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, number one of the Eids, I think the first Eid that we were together, or the, like, that
Yeah,
year
you
of together,
came to my house.
I came to her house,
It was
and
weird.
I talked to her dad. Her dad sat me down, and he just asked me a ton of questions of, what do I do for work?
Because yeah, at that first Eid, that's when like the marriage talk was starting. But like I said, this was before our families met. So
Yeah.
that Eid was what, in July, and then the actual official sit down dinner was in August.
Was it
Or
not
like
that-
September, or maybe first week of September.
something like
Because
that?
it was like a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So then we went to dinner together.
yeah, so he sat me
And we
down.
sat next to each other.
He sat me down, asked me a bunch of questions. So, I'm thinking, okay, so I already checked this box off. You know what? I know my mother-in-law loves me, so I can say this proudly. I already had a good feeling your mom was already on board.
Yeah, my mom liked you way too much.
But, and I love her so much.
She
but
loves you. Oh my gosh, she literally
I love her so
idolizes
much.
you because she's like, this is my only son-in-law. This is my only ever son-in-law. I'm going to treat him as a king.
She's so freaking amazing. But yeah, I was just nervous about your dad. I mean, rightfully so. This is your father,
But I did tell you not to be intimidated because, like I said, he is the most unintimidated person
sweetest
ever.
man.
Yeah.
He did his rightful duties.
Yeah.
And after you told them, like, yo, like, this is gonna happen now, like, this is what I want in life.
Yeah, because I didn't really
And-
ask permission to get married to you. I was like, I told them.
Yeah.
And like I was just always that type of person. I never asked permission. That's why I gave my parents such a hard time growing up, because like I never asked for permission. I was always like telling them.
Yeah. And but I felt I don't know, it's kind of weird, but just like it was just so natural when he asked me all those questions. Like we just had a really good conversation together, and I came out of that room and you're like, what did my dad ask you? And I knew your mom and you were like just on the other side, just wondering what's going on.
Because my dad doesn't talk a lot. He's a man of a very few words. Because my dad is a very nice guy, but he doesn't talk a lot, especially in social settings.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's anxious or something. He's just like that. So when he was having such a long conversation with you, we were kind of confused. We were like, what is this man saying?
It's kind of great that like I've been through this process of your family protecting you in a way over and over and over, because it's just built that like idea of responsibility for me for later on down the line,
because it wasn't like a yes and we went through it. It was like we literally had to go through like a few family meetups, because even right after Eid there was another meetup that my dad had with you individually.
individually. So that was the second one. And
No, there was the dinner. It was Eid. Then it was the dinner, the combined dinner. And then after the combined dinner, it was the individual sit down.
oh my goodness.
And then it was actually our family's meeting. Because, like, at that dinner, when it was me, you, and my parents, they, first of all, like, as a brown girl, like, thinking that you're going to sit down, have dinner with, like, your significant other with your parents, like, this is only something I've seen on TV. You know, to me, I was like, this is not normal. But that's, like, weird. And like, what made me feel so uncomfortable is that we were sitting next to each other. But, like, obviously, like, we had to because we were the ones that were going to get married.
You know what's so funny? I remember sitting at that dinner and they just brought out like so much delicious food.
Yeah, because we went to a really good restaurant.
But her parents were grilling me. They were grilling
Not
me.
in a mean way.
Not in a mean way, but
Yeah.
they were making sure to check all the boxes.
Yeah, they did a
And-
lot of small talk in the beginning.
And
My mom did.
yeah. Yeah, a lot of small talk. But then, you know, once they started grilling me, I'm just looking at the food and I'm like, oh, really want to take a bite. But
And it's
right
like,
now,
I wasn't even talking at all. I was disassociating the whole entire time. I was legitimately disassociating. I had no comments. I was eating. I was eating away.
Yo, I was starving. I remember I left that restaurant hungry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because like at a certain point of the dinner, my mom was like, okay, so like, are you ready to marry my daughter?
Yeah. And I gave her the answer and they still weren't fully confirmed.
Because they were just hesitant, like I said, with the family. Because I think, like, for us, like, we're both very family people. We
Yeah.
come from very big, like, family-oriented backgrounds where it's just, like, such a major thing in our lives. And that's something, like, I tried to escape when I was younger. But
Yeah.
now I'm embracing it. But because we're, like, the oldest in these family dynamics, like, that is just one of the factors, because that whole thing of, like, when you marry someone, you're actually marrying their family. Like, that's, in our cases, very true.
Yeah,
Very true.
very true. And then after that, like, was the sit down with me and your dad after our family dinner?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll just skip to that and go back to the family dinner
Okay.
because that was really short. And right after the family dinner, still they needed a confirmation from me